Have you ever sat in a meeting, looked around the table, and instantly knew who was irritated, who was pretending, who was about to dump responsibility on someone else? Nobody said a word, yet you still saw it clearly. This is the most dangerous ability. Without evidence, with just a glance or a breath, you can read the part others are trying to hide. Carl Jung called this differentiated perception, a kind of awareness that sees straight through the social mask. The danger isn't that you're wrong, it's that you're right too soon. Society cannot endure that gaze. People feel stripped bare, and instead of gratitude, what they feel is fear. They don't see you as an ally. They see you as a threat. Machiavelli once warned, "A wise ruler never reveals everything he sees. Because if you expose the stage too quickly, the crowd won't throw flowers, they'll throw stones." Have you ever felt that? When a lover says, "It's fine," but you still hear the unease in their voice. When a colleague smiles at you, but their eyes turn cold for just a second. When the family gathers around the table, silent, and you know there's something no one dares to touch. The truth is, this ability is like a double-edged blade. It gives you power, but unless you learn to sheath that blade in velvet, you'll become the dangerous one in the eyes of the group. And this is only the beginning. The journey ahead will show you how this ability can either destroy you or forge you into the kind of person history always needs. Someone who not only sees the truth, but knows when and how to use it as a subtle weapon. Be honest. Have you ever seen too much? If yes, write a short sentence in the comments. I have seen. It's not just an admission. It's a signal to others who silently carry the same eyes. In 1913, during the spiritual crisis that followed his break with Freud, Jung encountered a strange patient. She was nothing like the mentally ill people he had treated before. She walked into his office, and without any introduction, with just a glance, she knew who was in pain, who was hiding fear, who was nursing resentment. It sounded like a superpower, but in reality, it was a sentence. She couldn't make small talk because every casual word revealed falsehood. She couldn't keep friendships because people felt she was scanning them down to their roots. She couldn't hold any job because her mere presence was enough to shatter the unspoken rules that kept the group functioning. Jung recorded, "This woman was not insane. She was proof of what happens when the unconscious becomes too conscious." Machiavelli, if he had witnessed it, would have smirked coldly. A wise ruler never reveals everything he sees, because it was precisely that brutal transparency that turned her into an outcast. Have you ever experienced something similar? In your group of friends you said, "Something's wrong," but instead of listening, they laughed it off. You're just imagining things. In your family, you brought up a secret everyone silently avoids, and instantly, the entire dinner table turned on you as the troublemaker. The truth is, you didn't create the problem. You only exposed it. But society always reacts instinctively. Eliminate the one who unmasks the illusion. This was the tragedy Jung recognized. Those who possess eyes that are too sharp do not create chaos, but precisely because they reflect reality, the group chooses them as the scapegoat. Machiavelli had understood this centuries before. Power lies not only in seeing, but in the art of knowing which part to keep for yourself. Here's the question for you. If today you spoke out about what you see, would others truly listen? Or would they turn and call you the troublemaker? Jung realized that some people are like psychological sponges. They don't just feel their own emotions. They also absorb the unconscious atmosphere of others. He called this participation mystique, a mysterious merging. Imagine this. You walk into a party. Everyone is laughing, raising their glasses. But you notice the forced laughter. You hear the faintest sigh from the corner of the room. You catch two cold glances colliding in the middle of the crowd. While the group enjoys itself, you carry the weight of an invisible stone pressing down on your shoulders. Today, we call them highly sensitive people, about 20% of the population. But only a tiny fraction of them have differentiated perception, the ability to see through the collective unconscious. The problem is, they have no switch. The world floods into them, whether they want it or not. Machiavelli once advised, A wise ruler chooses what to hear and what to ignore. But for these souls, they don't have that privilege. They hear and see everything until they can no longer tell whether the anger belongs to them or to the entire room. Have you ever felt that way? At work, you walk into a meeting and sense clearly that something is wrong, even though everyone is still smiling. In love, your partner smiles and says, "It's fine," yet you still hear a crack in their voice. In your family, everyone sits in silence, but you sense tension lurking between unfinished stories. Society will tell you you're too sensitive. But Jung understood, this is a rare ability. The problem is, if you don't learn how to master it, it will crush you. Machiavelli would whisper in your ear, knowing more than others is power. But if you carry it all on your shoulders, you risk being cast out. That is the dangerous truth. Not that you see too much, but that you haven't yet learned how to survive with that vision. So, have you ever been swallowed by the emotions of an entire room? If yes, write a short sentence in the comments. I have carried. Jung soon realized a cruel law. Those who see through others are not only isolated, they also become targets of attack. Not because they create trouble, but because they act like a mirror reflecting the darkness. People hate looking into a mirror that shows them what they don't want to see. Everyone has a shadow. Selfishness, hypocrisy, cowardice. When you reflect those things, their unconscious has two choices. Either face them or smash the mirror. And most will choose the latter. Jung wrote, "Those who possess differentiated perception are often turned into scapegoats, not because they create the problem, but because they expose the problem already present within the group." Surely you've experienced this. You tell your best friend, "I can see you're not okay." Instead of thanking you, they snap, "You're too negative." At work, you warn about a risk. Instead of listening, you're labeled as the pessimist, ruining the mood. In your family, you bring up what everyone tries to avoid, and instantly, you're branded the troublemaker. Nietzsche once said, "Resentment always wears the mask of morality." That is why those who see too deeply are accused of overreacting, of being dramatic, when all they are doing is reflecting the truth. Machiavelli, in the 16th century, already knew. Most people would rather believe a convenient illusion than face a dangerous truth. And if you are the one who breaks that illusion, they will see you as an enemy, whether you intend it or not. Such is the tragedy. Those who see through are not only misunderstood, but turned into scapegoats. They bear the burden of disorder, not because they caused it, but because they dared to reveal it. Be honest. Have you ever pointed out the truth, only to be treated as if you were the one who created it? Machiavelli would remind you, if you want to survive, don't throw naked truth at the crowd. Choose the moment and deliver truth like medicine, not like a blade. Jung didn't stop at mere observation. He realized that even among the rare few who could see through masks, there were different kinds of weapons. Each carried its own strength and its own cost. 1. The emotional intuitive. They are like a field before the wind. A single breeze is enough to make them tremble. They absorb others' emotions so deeply that they can no longer tell which sadness belongs to them and which belongs to someone else. In the family, they cry on behalf of everyone. At work, they carry their colleagues' stress all the way to bed. Machiavelli would call them the hidden diplomats, sharp in sensing conflict, able to mediate skillfully, but easily exploited because their hearts are too soft. 2. The rational intuitive. They are like silent prophets. Without much analysis, just by looking at a situation, they already know how it will end. A relationship on shaky ground? They foresee the breakup. A project full of excitement? They see clearly that collapse is only a matter of time. Machiavelli would see them as the dark strategists, those who are always one step ahead, seeing the entire chessboard while others still struggle with the first move. 3. The sensory intuitive. They perceive through the body. They know when someone is about to fall ill, sense fatigue before anyone speaks, notice the frown that signals anger being restrained. In everyday life, They're the ones who say, something's not right with you even before you realize it yourself. In Machiavelli's eyes, they are the invisible sentinels, always detecting danger before it becomes disaster. 4. The pure, intuitive. This is the rarest type. They see everything, but cannot organize it. They live in a vast ocean of information without a map. They know too much, but don't know what to do with what they see. Machiavelli would see them as untapped treasure, filled with precious knowledge, but easily drowned by that very knowledge. No matter the type, all share the same fate, standing outside the circle of the group. Jung called this the curse of the superior function. The gift is also the burden. Machiavelli would remind us, power only has value when it is governed. And what about you? Look within yourself. Which type do you feel closest to? The emotional, the rational, the sensory, or the pure intuitive? Don't write long sentences. Just leave a single letter in the comments. E for emotional, R for rational, S for sensory, or P for pure intuitive. That's the first step to understanding the weapon you hold in your hands. Jung realized, the ability to see through is not only different, it carries within it 3 dangers powerful enough to destroy an entire life. And if Machiavelli were standing beside him, he would nod. This is the price for seeing more than the crowd. The first danger: shattering collective illusions. Every community survives on unspoken agreements. Families pretend to forget old wounds. Companies silently agree to overlook mistakes. Societies function on shared stories, even if they aren't fully true. But your very presence, your gaze alone, can tear that veil apart. And as Machiavelli warned, he who touches the illusion of the many makes himself their enemy. The second danger: psychological isolation. Jung called this the curse of the superior function. The clearer you see, the fewer people understand you. In conversations, they laugh casually, while you see the falseness behind the smiles. In love, they say, "I'm fine," while you know another truth. Their world and yours slowly drift apart. Nietzsche once sighed, "The one who climbs the highest mountain sees farther, but he is also the one who stands alone." The third danger: dissolution of the self. This is the ultimate peril. When you are too sensitive to the collective unconscious, you begin to lose your boundaries. The pain of others becomes your pain. Their anger burns inside you as if it were your own. Jung called this participation mystique, when the self dissolves into the group. And Machiavelli would remind, a wise ruler never dissolves into the crowd. To lose boundaries is to lose power. These 3 dangers combine into a paradox. The gift of seeing through can elevate you, but it can just as easily crush you. And there is only one path to survival: learning to turn the burden into strength. Jung understood, if you see through others, but never learn to guard your boundaries, this gift will turn into a curse. He called the path of rescue individuation, the journey of becoming yourself. And interestingly, Machiavelli once emphasized, he who rules must first rule himself. Phase 1. Differentiation. The first step is learning to separate. Which emotions are yours, and which ones have you unconsciously absorbed from others? You come home after work, exhausted, not because of the tasks, but because you carried the stress of your colleagues. Jung advised, spend time alone every day, let everything settle, and listen clearly to your true inner voice. Machiavelli would add, failing to distinguish what is yours from what is not, that is the fastest road to losing power. Phase 2, integrating the shadow. Those who are too sensitive to the shadows of others are often those who haven't faced their own. You hate dishonesty, because deep down, you too have lied. You despise selfishness, because you haven't admitted that selfishness also lives within you. Jung reminded, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Machiavelli would add, a wise ruler never denies ambition or cruelty. He learns how to use them to his advantage. Phase 3. Conscious participation. This is the hardest step, returning to the world without being swallowed by it. The individuated person can sit among the crowd, sense everything, yet still keep their own identity. They are like a vessel, able to temporarily hold others' emotions but fully aware, this is not mine. Jung called this conscious participation. Machiavelli saw it as the highest art of rulership. Live among the crowd, but never dissolve into the crowd. These three phases form a survival map. Without differentiation, you will dissolve. Without integrating the shadow, you will be haunted. Without conscious participation, you will be devoured. So, where are you on this journey? Differentiation, integration, or conscious participation? Leave just one letter in the comments. D for differentiation, I for integration, or C for conscious participation. That is your reminder. This path is not a curse. It is the opportunity to forge strength. Jung did not only study patience, he also searched history for people who possessed eyes that pierced through smoke and illusion. And one of the most haunting examples was Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche, the philosophical genius, the man who dared to strip illusions bare. He declared, "God is dead." He revealed that traditional morality was nothing but a cloak for cowardice and resentment. He stared directly into the abyss of humanity and spoke aloud what society didn't dare admit. But Nietzsche fell into the very trap Machiavelli had warned of. He who exposes truth before the crowd is ready makes himself their enemy. Nietzsche did not know how to conceal, how to restrain. He turned truth into a weapon, and that weapon turned back on him, tearing him apart. Jung observed, Nietzsche identified himself completely with his penetrating vision. He held no distance. He became the voice of the abyss, and the abyss swallowed him. At the end of his life, Nietzsche collapsed into madness, embracing a horse in the street, weeping like a child. Imagine this. You warn in a meeting that a project will fail. Instead of listening, everyone turns on you and calls you negative. Now multiply that pain 1,000 times. That was the price Nietzsche paid, shouting truth into a world not ready to hear it. Nietzsche became the symbol of the unintegrated visionary, seeing too far, but never learning how to keep boundaries. He never learned to turn truth into wisdom that others could accept, and in the end, he was drowned by his own vision. Machiavelli would say coldly, "Not every truth must be spoken at once. Power lies in knowing when and how to reveal it." This is the warning. If you do not learn control, the eyes that see through will not lead you to the heights. They will push you into the abyss. In contrast to Nietzsche's tragedy, Jung found another model, Meister Eckhart, the 13th century theologian and mystic. Eckhart also saw far too much. He dared to say, "God is not far away. He is within your own soul." Such teaching was dangerous, for it threatened the power of the medieval church. But instead of being consumed by light as Nietzsche was, Eckhart learned how to turn his penetrating vision into wisdom that society could accept. Eckhart did not wield truth like a blade. He used it as a bridge. He did not shout to attack. He whispered to invite. He did not rip away illusions in front of an angry crowd. He planted them like seeds in souls that were ready. Machiavelli once reminded, "It is not only truth that matters, but the way in which it is revealed." Eckhart was living proof. He clothed truth in soft language, so it could be received without sparking violent resistance. If Nietzsche shouted truth and was cast out, Eckhart delivered truth like medicine, making others feel illuminated rather than attacked. And because of that, he left behind a legacy lasting centuries, becoming one of the most influential spiritual teachers in Europe. Jung looked at Eckhart and realized, here was proof of successful integration. A man who possessed visionary eyes, yet was not crushed by them. One who stood on the boundary between unconscious and conscious, between shadow and light, yet kept his identity intact. Ask yourself, when you speak truth, do others feel threatened or enlightened? If you want to become a guide rather than an outcast, learn Eckhart's way, deliver truth like medicine, not like a knife. Jung did not only observe patience, nor only learn from history. He himself had to step into the abyss. After breaking with Freud in 1913, Jung fell into crisis. He was haunted by visions, seas of blood flooding across Europe, monstrous figures, whispers rising from the depths of the unconscious. Outside, World War I was about to erupt. Inside, his mind was no less a battlefield. He admitted, "I was threatened with psychosis. I was only saved because I understood what was happening to me through my work." To survive, Jung began writing and painting everything that appeared in his mind. 6 years later, he left behind a secret masterpiece, The Red Book. Imagine a psychiatrist who heals patients by day, yet by night becomes his own patient. Jung conversed with the shadows, recording every vision, every whisper, every nightmare. He transformed chaos into a survival map. If Nietzsche shouted into the abyss and was consumed, Jung chose to sit down, listen, and write down every echo. If Eckhart whispered to the world, Jung whispered to himself so as not to lose his sanity. The Stoics once said, "Each day distinguish what belongs to me and what does not." Jung turned this into ritual, writing, drawing, conversing with the unconscious, to keep the self from dissolving into darkness. Machiavelli would call this the supreme art of self-rule. He who would rule others must first rule himself. Jung ruled his own mind, transforming the edge of madness into a revelation. And from that abyss, he emerged not only intact, but carrying a map for all those who also see too much. Without the Red Book, Jung might have become another Nietzsche. But because of it, he became a guide, proof that eyes which see through are not a death sentence if you learn to integrate and discipline yourself. Jung quickly understood a truth. Those who possess eyes that see through masks cannot survive alone. Without psychological allies, they will be crushed by their own ability. Machiavelli once wrote, "No prince stands firm without alliances. For those with penetrating vision, alliances are not only political, they are about survival." Jung described 3 types of relationships that can save such a person from isolation. 1. Those who have individuated. These are the rare souls who have passed through the darkness and kept their identity intact. They recognize each other instantly. No words needed, just a glance is enough. Like 2 warriors meeting on the battlefield, silently knowing, this one has seen too. In everyday life, this may be a friend who has gone through therapy, or someone who has survived a mental crisis. They are not afraid of your gaze, because they too have once stared into themselves. 2. Those who are on the journey, they may not see as far as you, but they have begun to dig deeper. The one who practices meditation, the one undergoing therapy, the one walking the path of self-discovery. Jung said, "Those who have begun to know themselves can endure being seen by others. These are precious allies, for they do not attack you, they listen and learn with you." 3. The natural containers. They don't need visionary sight, nor philosophy. They have only one rare strength: calmness. A person who has lived through many trials, and thus is not easily shaken. A person who can sit with you, listen, hold the pain you pour out without judgment. Machiavelli would call them the gatekeepers. Not warriors, but those who keep the castle from collapsing. Jung reminded, without these relationships, the seer will soon be crushed by the collective. Machiavelli would nod. The right alliances not only protect the throne, they save lives. Reflect. In your life, who is the one you can speak to honestly without wearing a mask? Leave just one initial in the comments. It can be your silent way of honoring them. Jung believed that the ability to see through was not always a curse. If walked correctly, it could become a source of strength. He called this the 4 stages of transformation. And through Machiavelli's lens, we can see it as the art of power for the soul. Stage 1. Recognition. Without collapse, you must dare to admit, I see more than others. Do not deny it, but do not grow arrogant either. Jung wrote, the beginning of wisdom is the recognition of what we truly are. Machiavelli would remind, know your own territory before dreaming of conquering the world. Stage 2. Integration. Without losing yourself. Those who see too much often choose withdrawal, but that is failure. Jung said, The individuated must return to the world, to participate in it without being swept away. You go to work, attend meetings, smile and laugh, but you keep a secret distance within yourself. Machiavelli would call this being in the game, but never letting the game control you. Stage 3. Service without self-sacrifice. Instead of treating your gift as a burden, you begin to use it as a contribution. You reveal truth without condemning. You help others see their shadows without exhausting yourself. Machiavelli would praise, this is real power, influence without imposition. Stage 4. Legacy without attachment. At the highest level, you no longer need recognition. You plant truth without caring whether it is accepted or not. Jung wrote, the individuated works for the future, not for recognition in the present. Machiavelli would call this the supreme legacy of power, something that lasts longer than any throne. Ask yourself, which stage are you in now? Just recognizing, learning to integrate, beginning to serve, or ready to plant legacy? Leave a number from 1 to 4 in the comments. That is the vow you make to yourself. Even when walking the path of transformation, those with eyes that see through are always surrounded by dangerous traps. Jung warned of them, and if Machiavelli were present, he would whisper, these are the moves by which a ruler loses his throne. The first trap, arrogance, when you identify yourself with your gift, believing you are the only one who holds the truth, you fall into the swelling of the ego. In daily life, this is when you say, everyone is blind, only I can see. It may sound powerful, but in reality, it only makes you isolated. Machiavelli reminds, the wise ruler never lets pride cloud his judgment. The second trap, withdrawal. Some choose to retreat from the world, convinced that people are too ignorant to be worth engaging with. Jung said, that is not transcendence. It is surrender. In the family, it becomes cold silence. At work, it is giving up all warnings and letting mistakes unfold. Machiavelli would see this as the worst defeat. If you leave the chessboard, you no longer have any power over the game. The third trap, addiction to saving. Some find value by constantly trying to heal others. It sounds noble, but Jung warned, if you only define yourself as the savior, you will disappear into someone else's shadow. In daily life, these are the ones who carry every burden, care for everyone, then quietly grow bitter when no one does the same for them. Machiavelli would say, a ruler cannot live only for his subjects, if in the process he loses his own throne. The fourth trap, flooding returns. Even after learning control, during times of crisis, loss, stress, shock, the walls of boundaries can collapse. You are swallowed again, absorbing everyone else's pain and forgetting yourself. Jung reminded, integration is not a permanent achievement, but a process that must be sustained. Ask yourself, among these 4 traps, which one do you stumble into most often? Arrogance, withdrawal, savior addiction, or flooding return? Write a short letter in the comments, AWSFR. That becomes your map of where to stay vigilant. Jung knew well, eyes that see through are like a double-edged sword. If not handled carefully, you cut yourself. That is why he proposed practices of maintenance. And through Machiavelli's lens, this is nothing less than the art of keeping a throne, not only winning it, but protecting it every single day. Habit 1. Time alone. Each day, set aside quiet time to sort through emotions. After a tense meeting, you may feel angry without knowing why. Perhaps it isn't your anger, but the anger of the whole room. Jung advised, step back, let things settle, then discern what truly belongs to you. Machiavelli would call this closing the gates of the fortress to take inventory of the treasure. Thesur mating same. Habit 2. Choosing when to use the gift. It is not always necessary to see through. At work, sometimes silence is wiser. In the family, not everything you see must be spoken aloud. Machiavelli reminds, the wise conceal the blade behind the smile. Habit 3. Working with your own shadow. The more you deny your inner darkness, the more you will be haunted by the darkness outside. Write a journal, confront your dreams, or simply admit, I too am selfish, ambitious, angry. For Jung, this was an essential step. Machiavelli would say, a wise leader does not deny ambition or ruthlessness. He learns to use them at the right time. Habit 4. Finding containers. Sometimes you need someone who can listen without judgment. A friend, a mentor, or simply someone steady enough to hold the weight you unload. Machiavelli would see them as the gatekeepers, those who keep the castle standing when you are exhausted. Habit 5. Turning burden into creation. When too many emotions and impressions flood in, turn them into works. Write, paint, make music, even move your body in sport. Jung did this with the Red Book, painting and writing so he wouldn't drown. Machiavelli would call this the art of turning chaos into law. In work, this means choose a private moment to give feedback instead of exposing everything in the middle of a meeting. In love, ask gently, I feel there's something unsaid, instead of accusing. In family, wait for the safe moment instead of tearing open truths at the dinner table. Remember Machiavelli, not every truth must be spoken immediately. It must be delivered at the right time, in the right way. They have a mantas noted form, and the daily to weigh the moment. And they have a mantas, in the God and mantas noted form. For the raven the 7, the daily 2F. And remember Jung, truth only becomes medicine when you have a vessel to contain it, instead of throwing it into another's face. Carl Jung once called this the most dangerous discovery of his life, that some people are born with eyes that see what others cannot. But he also believed they are the pioneers of human consciousness. The danger does not lie in the vision itself. The danger lies in not knowing what to do with it. Without integration, it becomes a curse. Isolation, rejection, dissolution of the self. With integration, it becomes cultural medicine, a dose that forces society to mature. Nietzsche was the image of tragedy. He saw through, but was consumed by the light. Meister Eckhart was the symbol of success. He saw through, but turned the light into wisdom society could accept. And Jung, he descended into his own abyss, wrote the Red Book, and left behind a map so others would not collapse. Machiavelli warned, he who reveals truth when the crowd is not ready makes himself their enemy. Jung added, not all truth must be revealed. Learn to hold, to choose the right moment, and to deliver truth as medicine, not as a blade. You are not cursed for seeing too much. You are being tested to learn how to use it. You can become the victim, the mirror that is stoned, or you can become the guide, the one who turns vision into a bridge, linking unconscious with conscious, shadow with light. Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Machiavelli added, the great ruler does not let truth destroy him. He uses it to govern. So the real question is not, should I close my eyes to belong? The real question is, am I disciplined enough to open my eyes, keep my identity, and turn vision into a subtle weapon instead of a death sentence? This world will always need those who dare to see, but it does not need them as fallen martyrs. It needs them as pharmacists of the soul, turning vision into medicine, not into a curse. If you've listened this far, perhaps you too are among the few who see what others don't. Then, let this video become a meeting place for those eyes that pierce through. Which of the 4 intuitive types are you? And have you ever paid a price for seeing too much? Just one sentence in the comments. That may be the signal for others that they are not alone. If this content touched you, hit subscribe and share the video. Every share is a torch, one that may reach someone lost in the darkness of their own mind. You don't have to carry this gift alone. You are part of a community of seers. And here, we turn isolation into strength, shadow into light, curse into legacy. The gift of seeing through is not a flaw. It is a gift, but also a trial. Nietzsche let the gift crush him. Meister Eckhart turned it into wisdom. Jung wrote the Red Book to save himself and left a map for others. Machiavelli reminds, power lies not in revealing everything, but in knowing when and how to reveal. Jung adds, truth only becomes medicine when you know how to hold it and deliver it at the right time. 8. So do not shut your eyes just to fit in. Do not hurl truth like a blade. Discipline yourself, master the art of boundaries, and turn vision into a subtle weapon. The world does not need another who collapses. It needs you to become a pharmacist of the soul, one who turns vision into healing, not into a curse. Remember, truth does not destroy you. How you use truth decides your fate.